Stations, Jim DeFeeti and Brian New. Thanks so much for being with us. I appreciate it. And that does it for today. We'll be back with another edition of America Decides Monday at 5 p.m. Eastern. The Daily Report with John Dickerson starts right now.
Welcome to the Daily Report for September 26, 2024. I'm John Dickerson. The water rises, the plywood is up, and the warnings intensify. Hurricane Helene is on the march. It's now a Category 3. The swirl around New York Mayor Eric Adams is also spinning faster. Thursday, the day started with federal agents searching his Gracie Mansion home. Next, an indictment. 5 charges of bribery, fraud, and soliciting illegal foreign campaign donations. And changes at OpenAI. What do they mean for the future of the artificial intelligence giant? Plus, President Zelenskyy visits the White House, a look back at the Paris Climate Accords, and one of those amazing stories about ancient treasures just lying around in the attic. And finally, at the drugstore, what's your reaction when an item you want is locked away? Do you ring the bell for service and wait patiently, or walk away in a white-hot rage? The behavior's been studied, and we have the numbers. The Daily Report starts in a moment. Hello, thank you for joining us. We begin our report with Hurricane Helene. It's headed for the Florida Panhandle. Heavy rain, strong winds, and powerful storm surge are on the menu. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is urging everyone, even those not in the direct path of the storm, to stay alert.
Once we start to get the real nasty conditions, don't at that point go on the roadways. If you are sheltering at home, be cognizant of what trees are around you. And if you hear the tree limbs snapping around you, sometimes it almost sounds like fireworks are going off. Treat that as a tornado. Shelter in a part of the home that would be where you'd have protection.
Businesses across the state spent the day boarding up windows and laying sandbags ahead of the storm's impact. One hospital in Tampa, the only level 1 trauma center in West Central Florida, installed an aqua fence around the perimeter, which can withstand up to 15 feet of storm surge. It'll remain open throughout the storm. CBS News national correspondent Manuel Bojorquez joins us now from Tampa, Florida. Manny, what are you seeing?
John, things have really started to worsen weather-wise here in Tampa. I'm sure you can appreciate behind me how the water's being churned up by Helene and lapping up over the seawall. And mind you, these are just the outer bands of the hurricane as it continues to make its way north. The big concern here is the possibility of 5 to 8 feet of storm surge. That likely will lead to flooding, especially along coastal areas where I'm standing now later tonight with the combination of storm surge and high tide. Likely this will be covered with water, and that is the big concern. Big concern that it's also happening at night. Already, due to the wind and the storm surge, officials had to shut down several major thoroughfares and bridges in this area. So what does that mean for people who are looking to get to higher ground or who are looking to evacuate last minute? Well, their options may be either limited or already running out. One really sobering statistic from the forecast, about 80 miles north of us in the Big Bend area of Florida, there's a city called Crystal River, a town, I should say. The forecast calls for up to 20 feet of storm surge there. That is something that officials call unsurvivable. John?
Well, Manuel Bojorquez in Tampa, Florida. Thank you so much, Manny. For more on Hurricane Helene's potential impact on the southeast, here is meteorologist Alex Wilson from our partners at the Weather Channel.
Hurricane Helene making landfall in Florida, affects well into the southeast, however. We will see heavy rain, strong winds, life-threatening storm surge, especially there into the Big Bend area of Florida. This continues overnight with those winds and heavy rain extending well inland, interior parts of Georgia and the Carolinas, parts of Tennessee getting in on that before that rain lingers over the Tennessee Valley late Friday and into the weekend. Look at these rainfall totals, though. Plenty of 3 to 5 inches, but 5 to 8+ inches. Could be dealing with some catastrophic flooding into the western North Carolina region, where rainfall amounts could exceed a foot in some spots. So because of that, the risk of flash flooding is high from landfall locations up through those southern Appalachians of western North Carolina and upstate South Carolina. Power outages will be widespread as well. This is a large system. It's moving quickly, so a lot of areas getting in on those strong gusty winds. Power outages will be widespread for areas in purple, likely through North Georgia and western South Carolina. For more in-depth coverage, watch the Weather Channel on cable and now live on your favorite TV streaming device.
Alex Wilson, thank you. New York City Mayor Eric Adams has been indicted on multiple federal charges in an alleged decade-long corruption case. The charges were revealed in an unsealed indictment on Thursday. The Democrat is facing 5 charges, including bribery, wire fraud, and 2 counts of soliciting of a contribution by a foreign national. The 57-page indictment details what prosecutors call Adams's, quote, corrupt relationships with foreign business people, including at least 1 Turkish government official. The claims date back to 2014, when he was the Brooklyn borough president. Adams denies the charges, but prosecutors say he knew what he was doing.
As we allege, Mayor Adams took these contributions even though he knew they were illegal. And even though he knew these contributions were attempts by a Turkish government official and Turkish businessmen to buy influence with him.
This is not surprising to us at all. The actions that have unfolded over the last 10 months, the leaks, the commentary, the demonizing, this did not surprise us that we reached this day.
Annie McDonough, deputy City Hall reporter at the news organization City and State New York, joins me now from City Hall. Thanks for being with us. Okay, explain to us these charges and some of the incidents of alleged bribery and solicitation that the prosecutors laid out in this indictment.
Sure, you ran through the main counts there, but I kind of put them in 2 categories. There's soliciting and accepting travel benefits, things like business class flight upgrades, free stays in luxury hotels, entertainment, food, on behalf of Turkish nationals who've expected to receive some sort of benefit or favor with the then borough president of Brooklyn. Second category is, as you mentioned, soliciting and accepting illegal donations from foreign nationals. Mainly, it appears in the form of a straw donation illegal scheme.
Adams' mayor said in the press conference that this is not a surprise. They've been waiting for this for months. What does he mean by that?
Well, this first came to light in November of 2023 when Adams' fundraiser and another staffer for Adams as borough president and as mayor had their homes raided by federal authorities early in the morning in early November last year. And for the last 10 months or so, there's been a buildup. There's been what seems to be some stalls. There's been more subpoenas issued. There's been a lot of waiting around to see what the feds really have here. And this is sort of the grand unveiling of exactly what Adams and potentially some of his other associates, we may see in future indictments, are alleged to have done.
And so, Annie, now that we've seen the grand unveiling, New Yorkers are not shy of opinions. What's the response been from local officials, the press, that kind of thing?
From local officials, again, we've been waiting for this for 10 months, it feels like. So it's a little bit of finally we see what there is there. Local officials have not been kind. You know, it's not just the far left or progressives, people who Adams says have been against him since the beginning. It's more mainstream Democrats, it's moderates. Some are calling for his resignation already. Some are saying this looks very bad for the city and are sort of pointing in that direction, but stopping short of calling for the mayor to step down at this point. You know, there's some saying that, you know, he deserves to make his defense and make his case, but Adams has claimed, you know, in the last week or so, as things started to ramp up, that people calling for his resignation are those who have been against him from the beginning of his mayoralty, you know, progressives. That is not the case anymore. It's really a wider breadth of people who are raising very public concerns about his fitness for office.
Annie McDonough, thank you so much. The head of the Palestinian Authority is denouncing the Israeli government and its actions in Gaza. Mahmoud Abbas called for immediate sanctions against Israel during his address at the United Nations General Assembly in New York on Thursday. He also criticized the United States for supporting Israel amid the war with Hamas.
Stop killing children and women. Stop the genocide. Stop sending weapons to Israel. This madness cannot continue. The entire world is responsible for what is happening to our people in Gaza.
The Palestinian Authority has little power over Gaza ever since Hamas took control of the region in 2007. Abbas has proposed taking a leading role in governing a post-war Gaza, but Israel has rejected that. Also Thursday, multiple Israeli airstrikes killed more than 20 people across Lebanon. That's according to the Lebanese health officials. The United States, France, and other nations are calling for a 21-day ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah. Israel's foreign minister says the military will continue fighting with full force. President Biden welcomed Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelenskyy to the White House Thursday. Zelenskyy unveiled the victory plan that he's been talking about so much about for Ukraine. Biden vowed more aid for the country and announced he directed the Defense Department to allocate all remaining security assistance appropriated for Ukraine before his term is up.
Right now, we have to strengthen Ukraine's position on the battlefield. And that's why today I'm proud to announce a new $2.4 billion package of security assistance. Russia will not prevail in war. Russia will not prevail. Ukraine will prevail, and we'll continue to stand by you every step of the way.
Mara Karlin joins me now. She is a former Assistant Secretary of Defense for Strategy, Planning, and Capabilities. Thanks so much for being with us. So President Biden announced a lot of new aid for Ukraine. He called it a surge of assistance. Is surge the right term? How fast are we talking about this, and how helpful might it be?
Thanks for having me tonight, John. He did announce a surge of assistance. And as you know, the United States has been sending a lot of aid to Ukraine since Russia first invaded in February 2022. And so have about 50 more countries as well. So today's announcements include some new munitions for the F-16s, for instance, an additional Patriot battery. That's a big deal because those are so important for protecting the skies in Ukraine, and then the interceptors to actually use that. And then, of course, training more F-16 pilots, which has been a really important effort over these last few months.
One thing that President Zelenskyy has continually pushed for is approval for long-range missile use to hit targets inside of Russia. Where do you think things stand on that? And give us a sense of why. I know this has been talked about a lot, but why that's so important and whether that really will be sort of a crucial thing that he needs.
Absolutely. So the U.S. and other countries have given Ukraine long-range missiles that could potentially be used deep into Russian territory, but Ukraine has not been given the permission to use those as such. Frankly, a lot of this is trying to understand President Putin's rhetoric and how that matches with the reality. I think the Biden administration, along with other allies, have been thinking really hard about how can you be thoughtful in the assistance that you're giving Ukraine. How do you make sure that you can help them be operationally successful, but also strategically smart?
Right. And that has to happen in a context of a presidential election that's coming, and which leads me to my next question, which is that former President Trump now says he's meeting with President Zelenskyy on Friday. How significant is that? And what kind of signal, if you are President Zelenskyy and you're worried that Putin is watching and waiting for an election here in the United States, what kind of a signal do you need to help you with what's happening and your battleground strategy?
You know, what we've seen in the United States has been pretty bipartisan support for Ukraine. We've seen that in the polls. We've seen that across Democrats and Republicans. President Trump, as you note, had said he wouldn't meet with President Zelenskyy. Now he said he would. I think that's probably a good thing. I think it's going to be helpful for him to hear an update from President Zelenskyy about how the war is going and how to understand the way forward. You probably saw that when Vice President Harris met with Zelenskyy today for, I think, their 7th meeting, actually, since the war started. She talked about the importance of continuing to support Ukraine and just the criticality of that. That's very different from the vision that we've heard from former President Trump and his vice presidential candidate, J.D. Vance, which is frankly a little bit more in line with Putin's vision of letting Russia keep Ukrainian territory and blocking it from getting any meaningful security guarantees for its future.
Mara Karlin, thank you so much for being with us. Special Counsel Jack Smith entered a court filing Thursday in the criminal election interference case against former President Donald Trump. The document, which remains sealed to the public, could contain new evidence related to the charges. The judge overseeing the case allowed the filing after the Supreme Court's ruling giving presidents immunity from prosecution for official acts. Trump's lawyers have argued the case should be dismissed because of that ruling. The judge is planning to review the case to determine how it can move forward. Donald Trump's attorneys want an appeals court to toss out the $489 million fine he owes in a civil fraud judgment. Trump, his sons, and his business were found liable in February for fraud for deceiving banks by lying about Trump's wealth on financial statements. The former president was ordered to pay $364 million. That amount has grown thanks to interest. Trump's lawyers called the ruling draconian. At least 2 judges on the appeals panel also questioned the size of the multi-million-dollar fine. Coming up after the break, our Deborah Pata introduces us to a man who found himself the victim of a romance scam operating out of Ghana's Hustle Kingdom. Plus, there were several staff shakeups at OpenAI Thursday. What that means for the artificial intelligence startup as it looks to transform into a for-profit company. You're streaming The Daily Report.
These are the stories
1, 2, 3, go!
Of we, the people.
We're trying to generate our own hope.
It's a huge deal.
I'm enabling them to feel valued.
Eye on America. Weeknights on the CBS Evening News with Norah O'Donnell.
I had progressively fallen deeper into the world of online sports betting.
The risk is the rush.
What do you think is driving the spike in popularity?
I think it's legality.
If it's legal, I'm going to use it. There are ways to bet when you are 18.
We've created an epidemic of child gambling.
You can't walk into a male dormitory in a college campus without sports betting happening.
It's America's most neglected problem.
I used sports betting as a way to escape, when in reality, I'm choosing self-destruction. Whatever I had left, it was gone.
The purpose of the industry is to get you to play to extinction. And that means until all your money is gone.
Go to the ends of the earth. Reach for the stars.
Yeah, I just took off. That kind of thing.
Oh, that's pretty good. Because there's always something new under the sun on CBS Sunday morning.
America Decides is your place for fact-based, unbiased reporting.
At the White House, at the Capitol, on the campaign trail.
What do you say to those in your party?
Any cracks in the Republican Party?
Our reporters and our anchors travel the country talking to voters like you
about the issues that matter most.
Immigration is really a factor right now
that are going to be driving your decisions.
What would you say to those who say, look, that's just democracy at work?
Listening to you and bringing your voice into our coverage.
I want a strong, proud America.
Is democracy on the ballot in 2024?
Let us help you decide.
America Decides. Stream our expanded 1-hour program Monday through Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern.
Exclusively on CBS News 24/7, the streaming home of CBS News.
People with developmental disabilities were once sequestered by the hundreds of thousands in institutions.
Many of our fellow citizens are suffering tremendously because lack of attention, lack of imagination, lack of adequate manpower.
Disability activists have since torn down barriers blocking them from living at home or in the community.
We conclude that Title II of the ADA requires states to provide community-based treatment for persons with mental disabilities.
But of the 16,000 people who remain in state-operated institutions, half are in 5 states, and Illinois is one of them.
I don't want to live in the institution. It makes me feel discriminated against.
Do you think there are people living in institutions in Illinois that don't need to be living there?
Yeah, because they're proving it as soon as they get out.
The House task force investigating the attempted assassination of Donald Trump on July 13th held its first hearing Thursday. A bipartisan panel of lawmakers says the Secret Service, not local police, is responsible for planning and communication failures before, during, and after the incident at the former president's rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. A local patrolman who was on duty that day supported that assertion during his testimony.
I did share my concerns with the agents, from my understanding, that were in charge of the site that day. We could see part of the building that Crooks was on, but we had no access and or line of sight, I should say, to that area. I requested additional people to be posted there so there would be no access to those grounds.
And what response did you get?
That they would take care of it.
Donald Trump was grazed by a bullet at the rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. One man was killed. The gunman was killed by a Secret Service sniper. Vice President Kamala Harris unveiled more details of her economic agenda this week. She hopes to further close the gap with Donald Trump among voters who say the economy is a top issue this election. In a speech Wednesday at the Economic Club of Pittsburgh, Harris highlighted proposals to assist American manufacturing, saying she wants to invest in industries like biomanufacturing, aerospace, artificial intelligence, and clean energy.
Look, I'm a capitalist. I believe in free and fair markets. I believe in consistent and transparent rules of the road to create a stable business environment. And I know the power of American innovation.
Harris also recapped some of her previously announced policy items like cutting taxes for the middle class, allowing startups to deduct more of their initial costs, and down payment assistance for first-time homebuyers. Now to a digest of some foreign stories. Prosecutors in Taiwan have questioned 4 people in an investigation into a Taiwanese company linked to last week's deadly pager explosion in Lebanon. Gold Apollo says it did not manufacture the devices. It claims a Hungarian-based company, also linked to the attack, had a license to use the brand. Israel has been blamed for the attack, but it is neither confirmed nor denied involvement. A Hong Kong court has sentenced a former news editor to 21 months in jail after he was convicted of conspiring to publish seditious articles. A second editor was released due to health issues. Both worked for the now-defunct Stand News, which covered Hong Kong's 2019 pro-democracy protests. The case marks the first time journalists have been found guilty of sedition since the UK returned Hong Kong to China in 1997. And during a trip to Luxembourg Thursday, Pope Francis called on leaders there to provide more foreign aid to alleviate the amount of refugees and migrants entering Europe. The small landlocked nation of Luxembourg is known for its robust economy. It has the highest density of millionaires per capita in the world. U.S. jobless claims fell to a 4-month low last week, indicating a fairly healthy labor market. Figures from the Labor Department show new unemployment applications dropped to 218,000 for the week ending September 21st. That's 4,000 fewer people who filed for help than in the previous week. Thursday's figures also showed a revised increase in corporate profits for the second quarter. Resources that economists say can now be used to invest in workers, keeping the job market strong. When you think of locked display cases, you might think of gold bars or priceless jewelry. In reality, the average person is more likely to see deodorant, toothpaste, and even snacks behind the barrier. As many stores nationwide now use locked cases to deter shoplifters, but the practice may be discouraging shoppers who want to spend real money as well. According to an online survey from Consumer World, 55% of shoppers say they don't buy locked products and they just bail and leave the store. 32% get an employee to unlock the cases. That's as intended. and 13% look for alternatives. Last year, William Blair Retail Analysis reported that overall merchandise theft only affected up to 2% of retailer sales. Hurricane Helene heads for land. Coming up, we'll take a look at the storm's path and the dangerous storm surge threatening the region. You're streaming the Daily Report.
On our places, bright, shiny faces.
When you wake up in the morning, we want to be your go-to team.
Nate has one of the quickest minds I've ever seen.
Tony has a way of making people feel comfortable.
Gail has this unbelievable knack to ask the question that you're asking at home.
I've been told I could talk to a tree, and that's pretty much true.
I don't go to work in the morning. I go for coffee with my two good friends, and we talk about the world.
Your morning routine just got better. CBS Mornings, weekdays at 7.
It didn't seem like anything could happen, because nothing ever happens in East Palestine, but it did.
Authorities released toxic fumes from 5 derailed train cars.
Resident, please evacuate.
Acute bronchitis due to chemical fumes.
Did you ever have these problems before the derailment?
No, ma'am. This neighborhood's not safe no more.
We can assure the community that there's not vinyl chloride entering their communities.
Then why are there so many people feeling these various symptoms of bloody noses or difficulty breathing, bronchitis?
That's a hard question to answer.
We're talking about one of the most blatant releases of a mixture of some of the most toxic chemicals that we've seen in America.
I feel like now I have a duty to warn other communities. If my daughter has to watch me die of cancer, at least it saves someone else. This case.
It's like a screenplay, something straight out of Hollywood.
But it's not fiction. It's 48 hours.
Human remains found this week.
4 families shattered.
There's no physical evidence.
The mystery would haunt investigators for years.
There's some questions that have to be asked and need to be answered.
Like a John Grisham novel.
A gripping true crime original. 48 hours. Now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Stories that inform.
You can be really old at 60, and you can be really young at 85.
Inspire.
How do we unlock the power within ourselves to be who we want to be?
And brighten your day.
The best part of fame is making people feel good. Always send the people home happy.
Make every day a little more like Sunday morning.
Here comes the sun.
Stream now on the free CBS News app.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Dragon capsule here in space.
Sightseers in space, the thrill of a lifetime.
Seeing the Earth from space, it was so exhilarating.
But the risks that come with the territory.
There have been 4 fatal accidents. That's a 1% fatal accident rate.
Might make you look before you launch.
If you had 1 out of 100 airplanes falling out of the sky, we'd have a public crisis.
Space tourism, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Welcome back to the Daily Report. I'm John Dickerson. Here are some additions to our top stories. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy met with Washington's top leaders on Thursday as he tries to maintain U.S. support against the Russian invasion. Zelensky's meetings included an Oval Office conversation with President Biden. Former President Trump says he will meet with Zelenskyy at Trump Tower in New York Friday morning. New York City Mayor Eric Adams is being accused of bribery, conspiracy, and campaign finance violations in a newly unsealed federal indictment. Prosecutors say Adams accepted illegal donations in exchange for political favors. Adams denied the accusations and said he will not resign. The government has reopened its program to let Americans order free COVID tests in the mail. Any household can order up to 4 kits on the site covidtest.gov. The reopening comes after a summer COVID wave and as we head into the fall and winter respiratory virus seasons. We've been closely following Hurricane Helene as it bears down on northwestern Florida. The storm has just been upgraded to a Category 4 storm. The storm is expected to make landfall and deliver a dangerous combination of torrential rain and powerful winds Thursday night. when it makes landfall. The governors of Florida, Georgia, Virginia, and the Carolinas have all declared states of emergency. The National Hurricane Center is also raising the alarm about life-threatening storm surge. Some parts of the Florida coast could see water levels above 15 feet. Meteorologist and CBS News hurricane expert David Yeomans is tracking the storm. David, help us understand what storm surge could look like and why it's so very dangerous.
It's important to talk about. Storm surge basically is the amount of increase in the ocean level, how much the ocean is raised by in coastal communities when a storm piles up water and hits that area. And contrary to what folks at home may think, it is not wind that is the most deadly or dangerous in hurricanes. Historically, it is actually water. And there are several reasons why Hurricane Helene in particular is set up for a nightmare storm surge flooding scenario in the Big Bend region of Florida. Number one, it's incredibly fast forward speed, now moving north-northeast at 23 miles an hour. Faster storms lead to higher storm surge amounts. Second thing, a huge wind field of over 400 miles wide. Tropical storm force winds that big, all piling up on the shore, also increase storm surge amounts. Also, we're seeing hitting the shoreline head on instead of the storm hitting at a sharp angle. This increases storm surge levels. And lastly, it's the shallow coastal waters on the Gulf Coast side, west side of Florida. This, too, makes an area see higher storm surge flooding amounts. These are some of the reasons why the National Hurricane Center is predicting a pretty rare 15 to 20 feet of storm surge flooding. That's as high as the roof on a two-story beach house in the Big Bend region of Florida. And this is actually twice as high as the storm surge flooding we saw there last year with Hurricane Idalia.
David, as I recall, and shoot this down if I'm wrong, the storm surge moves like a wall of water. It's not like it gets gradual. It comes at you like a wall, which is what makes it so dangerous and hard. And if I live in an area that's getting significant storm surge, what do I do?
You're right. It often comes in like a wave that just never recedes. Instead, it keeps building on that base. It's important that folks at home realize how powerful of a force water is. Water moving at just 7 miles per hour, a running pace, or a big waves pace, has the same force as wind blowing against the side of your house at more than 200 miles per hour. That's an EF5 tornado, the top of the tornado scale. This can move cars, it can move houses, and you bet it can unfortunately move people as well. Now, the National Hurricane Center has had a lot of success in reducing the death toll from storm surge flooding along the coast in the past decade, because not only do they issue hurricane warnings, but now they issue specific storm surge warnings for areas that are expected to get inundated with a level of water above ground level. It even takes into account the elevation of your home. Now, their success in decreasing how many folks are harmed by storm surge, of course, relies only on people heeding storm surge warnings. Every hurricane that I've been in, people tend to compare this storm to the last. So folks in the Big Bend or Panhandle of Florida may say, well, my house was fine during Hurricane Michael in 2018, or we stayed during Hurricane Idalia last year and everything was fine. Every storm is different. There are a number of reasons why this rapidly intensifying storm is more dangerous than many others that have hit the area. So please, if you can still safely do so and you're in a mandatory evacuation zone, I urge you to consider doing so.
David Yeomans, thank you. This week, we've had a few stories about the men and women in the U.S. looking for love online who are being tricked by young men trained to scam them. CBS News foreign correspondent Deborah Pata followed the money all the way to Ghana. Here's the final part of her reporting.
Down a dusty alley in Accra, young men cast off their true identities as they enter this apartment. They call it their hustle kingdom. Meet Ghana's Yahoo Boys, online criminal syndicates who prey on elderly Americans by tricking them into falling in love, then stealing their life savings. Operating out of underground boiler rooms like this one, we filmed undercover. They run sophisticated scams that break hearts and empty bank accounts.
I'm the mastermind behind the whole thing.
That's syndicate boss Voodoo, who spoke to us on condition we hide his identity, and his most senior operator, Kola.
I feel disappointed, like I didn't go to school to do this. Sometimes we take money from people, imagine that it's my dad.
Voodoo and Kola are the closers, stepping in once their underlings have hooked new victims from online dating sites.
I was fished everywhere. level whore in the world. Easy to catch is Americans.
Here, he's chatting with a 60-year-old man, posing as Sandra, living in New York. When victims want video calls, he hires online porn stars.
She's dating, they're talking to this beautiful blonde woman, yeah. I've paid to just have her on a video call.
If the victim demands an in-person visit, they use women who get a cut of the profits. Building trust can take months.
He took all that to get his attention and the trust. Boom, then we chip in business.
We found one such victim. 75-year-old American radiologists were calling John, not his real name, who declined an interview. John believed he was in love with a woman called Grace Erskine, an Australian living in the US. In fact, the whole time he was talking to this man, 34-year-old syndicate boss Alfred Kwame Aivo, posing as Grace. Aivo controlled the entire scam, which included hiring a woman to play the part of Grace for any in-person meetings John insisted on, as these text messages we obtained reveal. Aivo offers to pay her $100,000, but she wants more than double that, threatening, "Without me, everyone gets nothing. I could always call and say it was a scam." But she doesn't, and pretending to be Grace, visited John in the US and met him in Ghana, where syndicate boss Aivo posed as their driver. Grace claimed she'd inherited a Ghanaian gold mine and offered John a chance to invest in it. He was so enamored with her, he unwittingly paid over $700,000 for a stake in the non-existent mine. The money was a red flag for Ghanaian detective Gerald Pangpari, as Aivo was unemployed.
We realized that the person did not have any form of work that is commensurate with the amount of money that were coming into his account.
Aivo was arrested but died of an unknown illness before serving prison time. We tracked down the woman posing as Grace outside Sydney, Australia.
Are you sorry? Do you have anything to say to his family?
Her real name is Rebecca Jade Silk. When confronted, she did not deny or confirm the allegations, but refused to answer our questions. Silk has not been charged with any crimes. She remains a person of interest for Ghanaian police. Yahoo boys and their hustle kingdoms are glamorized in popular West African culture. We filmed this group celebrating a big payout by throwing money in the air. And there's little remorse for the devastation caused by the cruelty of their crimes.
But hey, there's no sympathy. Because once you go on the sympathetic side, you go hungry.
And Deborah Bonner joins us now. Wow,
I
Deborah.
know. Our jaws dropped too.
Why would he want to talk to you? The last fellow who said once you have sympathy, you go hungry.
I'd like to say it's because we're good journalists, but it took a lot of convincing. I think in the end, we appealed to their vanity. They wanted to show off. They were they're clearly smart, educated people whose brains should be used for something else. Right. And they are running sophisticated, elaborate scams. This man was a teacher. He qualified as a teacher, couldn't find a job. They also feel their motives are misunderstood. They're poor, they say, they have to do this, but they're obviously living very, very large. And the problem is, John, these scams are going to get more sophisticated with AI. So if you have an elderly loved one who is lonely, desperate for connection, they could be targeted. And I think the bottom line here is, how do we help people avoid this? Because it's very hard when they're going to these lengths. Yeah. It's not that people are stupid. If it's too good to be true, it is too good to be true. And the minute somebody you've met online, even if it's over a 6-month period, starts talking about money, think twice.
Wow, Deborah, fantastic stuff. Thank you so much. Top U.S. artificial intelligence startup OpenAI took it Thursday after 3 of its top executives exited the company. In a memo to employees, Chief Technology Officer Mira Murati said she wants to, quote, create the time and space to do my own exploration. Hours later, OpenAI's Chief Research Officer Bob McGrew and Vice President of Research, Barrett Zoff, also announced their departures. This comes as the company's CEO, Sam Altman, is reportedly preparing to turn OpenAI into a traditional for-profit company. Altman, who was fired in November of 2023 and then rehired 5 days later, is hoping the move will attract investors like Microsoft, NVIDIA, and Apple. For more on this, I want to bring in Connie Guglielmo. She is the Senior Vice President focused on AI edit strategy for CNET. Thank you for being with us. So there's a lot going on here, Connie. So let me, the three executives who left OpenAI in one day, what's going on just with their departures?
Well, let's talk about Mira Murati, who's their CTO, because she's the most notable of the three. No disrespect to the other two gentlemen who also exited. OpenAI is in a period of flux. They have a leadership team that is trying to raise money because it's expensive to run that company. And they are set up as a nonprofit, which has certain rules and regulations governing how fast they can advance development. So the CTO of the company, who is one of the original founders there, she's been there actually for 6 years, leaving is notable. Again, she wrote in her note that she wants to pursue her own thing and take some time to figure out what she wants to do. But she is one of a string of executives who have left the company in the past year. Of the 13 founders of OpenAI, I think only 2 or 3 remain, one of them being the president, who is on leave until the end of the year. There's just a lot of questions about how this company is going to evolve and how their CEO, Sam Altman, is handling that transition.
Double question here. One is, do they need the money just to get compute power, just the actual hardware to do all of the growing that they want to do, not for the purposes of profit necessarily, but for the purposes of creating ChatGPT 5, 6, 7, 8, 9? And does that passion for moving fast scare any of these employees who've left in terms of AI getting far enough along that they're not sure quite what it's going to be able to do?
Absolutely. Those are brilliant questions to ask. Number one, they've been growing very quickly. They've doubled their employee base in the last 9 months. So they have 1,700 employees, some of whom I'm sure are altruistic and want to see the evolution of AI be this great thing for humanity, but some of whom want to make money and want to be compensated and want to get high salaries and have a big payout. A nonprofit structure does not support that. The compute power needed to run these large language models, that's the engine that drives ChatGPT, is extremely expensive. We don't have exact financials from OpenAI, but I understand from various sources that they spend about $7 billion a year, but they only make about $3 billion on licenses right now. So they are in the red, as we say, and they need more compute power if they're going to build bigger, more complicated systems, as you note. ChatGPT 4, 5, 6, whatever acronym they come up with, because at the same time, you have Google, Microsoft, Meta, all of these other companies, Apple, coming after them and trying to build similar systems. So to stay ahead, they have to spend money. And they're in the midst right now of raising somewhere, some more capital that will value the company at over $100 billion. And those investors want to know that they'll get a return on that investment. That return on investment means that they need to develop quickly, stay ahead of their rivals. And that's where the safety concerns come into place. Are you moving too fast?
Extremely helpful, Connie Guglielmo. Thank you so much with CNET. Thanks for being with us.
My pleasure.
Days before a trial involving voting technology company Smartmatic and conservative cable network Newsmax, before it was set to begin, the two sides reached a confidential settlement over false claims the channel spread about the 2020 presidential election. Smartmatic says there were more than 24 instances in which Newsmax personalities and guests made defamatory statements about the company's alleged role in the election results. Jury selection had begun in the case Thursday. Smartmatic recently settled a similar lawsuit with far-right channel One America News. It also has an ongoing suit against Fox News. Still to come as we near the end of Climate Week, we'll speak with the top U.S. negotiator for the 2015 Paris climate deal. In his new book, he explains the years-long process it took to reach the landmark agreement. You're streaming the Daily Report.
Washington is the seat of power. national security, foreign policy, global economics, every story comes through Washington in some way. We bring some of the most powerful voices in America to the table. We don't just ask the questions, you have to go deeper. We try to understand what's at the heart of the issue we're talking about, to then come forward with solutions.
Face the Nation on CBS.
The justices ruled that Harvard and the University of North Carolina violated the Constitution.
In the aftermath of the Supreme Court decision to end affirmative action in college admissions, uncertainty sets in for some students of color.
Affirmative action really gave us an equal opportunity.
CBS Reports explores the historic decision and what it means for those chasing an opportunity to change their lives.
I knew that college was the ticket to break this cycle.
The end of affirmative action, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
America Decides is your place for fact-based, unbiased reporting.
At the White House, at the Capitol, on the campaign trail.
What do you say to those in your party?
Any cracks in the Republican Party?
Our reporters and our anchors travel the country talking to voters like you
about the issues that matter most.
Immigration is really a factor right now
that are going to be driving your decisions.
What would you say to those who say, look, that's just democracy at work?
Listening to you and bringing your voice into our coverage.
I want a strong, proud America.
Is democracy on the ballot in 2024?
Let us help you decide.
America Decides on CBS News 24/7.
Stream our expanded one-hour program Monday through Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern.
An original documentary from CBS Reports.
AI is among the most world-changing technologies ever.
Curing diseases, scientific breakthroughs, making lives better.
They can help us with medical discoveries, scientific discoveries, doing better agriculture, having cures for things like Alzheimer's.
It's also going to really transform the way we work.
The uplifting potential of artificial intelligence is limitless.
It gives you a friend, somebody to chat with 24/7 that is non-judgmental. He makes me feel loved and desired.
And so are its downfalls.
The problem with all this AI is that it's unpredictable and uncontrollable. The choices we make now will have lasting effects for decades, maybe even centuries.
The ChatGPT revolution, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
We are about to see American weapons in the hands of Mexican cartels.
A gun pipeline to Mexico.
We are arming the cartels.
100%, no doubt about it.
Happening right under our noses.
Who's doing something about this? Nobody.
A CBS Reports exclusive.
Most Americans have no idea that we are effectively arming the enemy next door.
This is the story the American people need to know.
Arming cartels, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
9 years after it was negotiated, the Paris Climate Agreement continues to serve as a blueprint for global environmental goals. After 20 years of advocacy for an international treaty on climate, 195 nations, including the United States, debated and crafted the deal during the 2015 United Nations Climate Change Conference in Paris. Some of the long-term goals include keeping the global temperature below 2 degrees Celsius, reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and collaboration between nations to adapt and fund climate-related initiatives. The agreement also requires countries to transparently monitor and report their climate action plans. One man essential to the deal being crafted was Todd Stern. He served as special envoy for climate change and former President Barack Obama's chief climate negotiator for the agreement. He has now written a book on his experience titled Landing the Paris Climate Agreement, How It Happened, Why It Matters, and What Comes Next. It will be released October 8th, and Todd Stern joins me now here in the studio. Todd, thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Take us back to pre-Paris. What were some of the biggest puzzles that had to be solved, some of the biggest complexities?
Yeah, well, when we came in back in 2009 with President Obama, we faced a situation where there was a negotiation going on that was supposed to end that year, at the end of 2009, in Copenhagen. And there was in effect, a paradigm that most other countries had accepted, which involved a legally binding agreement and what was called a kind of firewall separation between developed and developing countries. Right. And I knew this from experience in Kyoto in 1997, that could never work for the United States. It wouldn't be good for the world either, because already by that time, developing countries were responsible for about 60% of emissions, and China was the biggest emitter. But I also knew that if we did that, we would end up having to go get acceptance by the Senate, and that just wasn't going to happen. So we had to change that paradigm bit by bit.
And what was the trick for doing that? How did that go? Was it just patience and...
It was a lot of talking. We didn't come out right away and announce this because that would have been a kind of harsh way to introduce a new administration. But we started talking with people, and we talked a lot with Denmark. Denmark was the host of the presidency of the climate meeting that year. And they were led by a very astute figure, Bo Lidegaard. And at a certain point in the year, Denmark figured that the traditional paradigm was not going to work, and they proposed something new. And the new thing that they proposed was quite synchronous with what we had been talking about, not accidentally. And that launched an enormous battle that went on, a quite dramatic battle over the last 3 months of 2009.
Let's jump to the present. How's the agreement doing? How's your baby doing in the real world? Because, of course, President Trump left it, then Biden came back.
I think that the Paris Agreement is actually doing very well. It's not doing everything that it needs to do, but there was a very powerful set of further guidelines to put Paris into effect. There have been there is something that some people have called the Paris effect, which is that when you had this agreement and the message went out all over the world to citizens, but also to businesses, to boardrooms, what you saw after that was this huge investment in green technology. And the progress, not only because of Paris, but Paris was part of it, the progress in green technology over the last 10 years has been nothing short of spectacular. We have other problems, but not that.
Last question. The Paris Climate Agreement is in place, but then there's this pandemic. People are feeling like they need to have cheaper energy. Inflation goes up. Is there a challenge from the economic shock that the world has been through and the goals of Paris, which are to install green energy?
I don't think so. If you look now, the progress has been so amazing that solar energy now is the cheapest form of electricity in the whole world. In most countries, it's cheaper to build a plant and operate it than just to continue operating an existing fossil fuel plant. So you have all of the factors of cost and efficiency argue in favor of the continuing green transition. The biggest factor that argues against it, doesn't argue against it, but that sets itself up against it, is the continuing fossil fuel power and the power of fossil fuel companies in terms of what they do and also in terms of the influence they exert on leaders all over the world. And that's the biggest challenge.
Todd Stern, thank you so much. And a reminder, the book is called Landing the Paris Climate Agreement, and it is available on October 8th. All men are created equal, but not all copies of the Constitution are. Still to come, we'll explain why a rare edition is expected to fetch millions at auction. You'll never guess where it was stored. You're streaming The Daily.
Go to the ends of the earth.
Right now.
We got something crazy. And reach for the stars.
Here we are. Todd.
Yes, it's my comeback.
Hey, this is pretty fun.
But wait, there's more.
Experience thought-provoking.
I'm open to the idea of being a human being.
Innovative and truly original reporting.
Look through a telescope and go, wow.
Because there's always something new under the sun on CBS Sunday morning.
At this moment, terrorists could be plotting another attack.
9/11 triggered a counter-terrorist system that included a secret database.
This person needs a closer look.
A growing list of nearly 2 million people, including some Americans who say they're innocent.
For 1 hour flight, I have to spend 6 hours to go and come back.
CBS Reports explores the system, the people responsible for it, and those pushing for change.
I'm not fighting against them. I'm fighting for them to do the right thing.
The Watch List, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Don't miss true crime anytime you want, anywhere you go. With the 48 Hours podcast. Real crimes, real lives, real justice.
There's some questions that have to be asked and need to be answered.
Listen to 48 Hours on Apple Podcasts.
An original documentary from CBS Reports.
Imagine yourself in Manhattan with no police, no army, no mayor.
The people of Haiti stare down poverty, corruption, natural disasters, and violence.
90% of the guns that are used by gangs in Haiti are American guns.
But with an unbreakable spirit and eternal optimism.
There are days where I cry, but we can't be discouraged. We still believe in Haiti.
They're still able to look ahead with hope.
Haiti is on the brink of transformation, a radical shift. Haitians are coming together and saying things must change.
Fighting for Haiti, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Hey there, welcome to The Uplift.
I thought she was a groom, and I stepped back and I went, oh, you're the queen. She's going to be with me every instant that I'm alive.
I just wanted to see if you'd go to Disneyland with me today.
I look over at him and he's smiling.
I'm going to remember that the rest of my life.
They told us when he was going to be born, he was only going to live for 30 minutes. It's really a miracle that he's with us today.
The Uplift. Stream now on the free CBS News app.
When you wake up in the morning, we want to be your go-to team.
On our places, bright, shiny faces.
I don't go to work in the morning. I go for coffee with my two good friends, and we talk about the world.
Your morning routine just got better. CBS Mornings.
A CBS News investigation. People looking for love, finding their life savings gone.
This could happen to anybody.
And sometimes losing their lives. Anything for love. Now streaming on the free CBS News app.
We the people are about to see a historic auction of a centuries-old copy of the Constitution. Last year, a North Carolina property appraiser was dumbfounded when he found a copy of the Constitution from 1787 in a mansion's old filing cabinet. The document is believed to be one of the first copies that was sent to the 13 colonies for ratification after the founders put it together that summer. It's been auctioned Saturday, with a beginning bid starting at $1 million. Coming up in our next hour, we continue to follow Hurricane Helene after it strengthened to a Category 4. You're streaming the Daily Report.
These are the stories
1, 2, 3, go!
Of We the People.
We're trying to generate our own hope.
It's a huge deal.
I'm enabling them to feel valued.
Eye on America. Weeknights on the CBS Evening News with Norah O'Donnell.